Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. We're sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. We do also podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educators spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out.
Tala Falava and welcome to the Reads with Rossa podcast. I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. She is an artist, a project coordinator, co-founder of Shared Lines, a wahine toa, and people connector based in Tomokanga, Auckland, Aotearoa. She began her carving journey making Buddhist statues while living and working in Japan, and has played a huge role in building community and maintaining Ainu and Māori relations both here and in Aotearoa. She returned home in 2020, and in 2022, she made her first public work as part of a team who built a Tomokanga in Kaitaia, and she was shortlisted for the Kiingi Tuheitia Portraiture Award in 2023. It is my honor to welcome to the show Ngaroma Riley. Kia ora! Woohoo! Welcome, welcome.
Morena. Ohayo gozaimasu.
Ohayo gozaimasu. How are you? How are you now?
I'm good. It's great to see you, sis. I know
you must be nervous.
Early morning. I am nervous.
Because we were just, when I tell you, if you're watching this, we were just seriously a few minutes ago laughing offline, and now she's gone like. I am, first of all, grateful to have you here. Everyone, when I tell you that we've been trying to make this happen, but Ngaroma has been super, super busy as an artist, doing exhibitions around New Zealand, and it's an honor. Like I said, it's such an honor to have you here. I'm excited to talk about your craft, the creative side of you as an artist. Excited to share with everyone here in Japan who know you, just what you've been doing, just the amazing community building that you've been doing. So let's get into it. Before we begin our korero, I do like to ask guests just to, do a brief introduction. So I'll hand it over to you. Sis, go ahead.
Oh, kia ora. Ko Ngaroma tōku ingoa. He uri ahau no te au pauri me te raroa. A he ringa toia ahau, he ringa whaua no hoki. My name is Ngaroma. I am a descendant of Te Raroa and Te Aupōuri. I'm an artist and primarily a carver.
Yeah.
What else?
Are you still fluent in Japanese? I bet you are. You can't lose it that fast.
Carl, I don't know. Yeah. Ooh, you can lose things pretty quick. It was a good test for me when the Ainu whānau were here over summer. Yeah. Because, you build vocab and like language acquisition happens as you're learning about specific things. I mean, you probably... I don't know. It depends on where your interests lie, I suppose. And even with you to do with school, your vocab surrounding what you do in the classroom and everything in Japan, you would have quite a specific linguistic base to do with the school system, which other people who have learned Japanese at university or whatever just wouldn't have from the daily kind of interactions that you have. And so I guess I noticed a lot of indigenous specific language that I kind of lost, or, if we talk about anything political, I'm like, what does that mean again? And yeah, it was definitely a good, fast kind of just being thrown back into all of it, but it was great.
Prior to being in Japan and carving, where does your story as an artist actually begin?
In my childhood, my nana, my Pākehā nana, was a great craftsperson, and she used to always have projects lined up for us. So whether that was making pin cushions or making presents for people for birthday presents, or they had the church markets. She was also a minister's wife. My tupu, my grandfather, was an Anglican minister. So she used to do the dioramas at church. I used to love seeing those. So she'd set up the nativity creche, and what else? Palm Sunday crosses. We used to weave them every year when that came around. And then she taught us things that she'd learnt to support my tupu, my grandfather. So she embroidered, like for the vestry, his robes. She would make things specific for him, I guess, with a Māori flavour. I mean, we've still got some things left over that I keep thinking, I've got to finish that off. Belts and guitar straps that she wove from taniko. So she taught me basic raranga, how to weave taniko, all those sort of things, and really kind of instilled a love for making from a very early age. And then, so I've always been a maker, and just spent hours doing it as a child, drawing or making things. And then at university, I did a degree in design. I did a year at art school, which wasn't particularly successful. I mean, looking back, it's something that I should have always done. I just didn't really know how, and I didn't have the confidence. And it's a really hard, it's a difficult space to navigate, and they don't teach you any of that in tertiary institutions, how to, get out there and do it all. But we did, when I was at art school, there was a gentleman named Clive Arledge, who was a teacher lecturer over at Tiko, and he used to hold morning teas for the Māori students and any other stragglers, and used to welcome us in. And because there wasn't really anything for Māori students at art school, so he suggested that we have an exhibition. He said, give me $10 and I'll organise an exhibition for you, a group exhibition. And he's Ngāpuhi from up north. And so he organised an exhibition, and that was, 20 million years ago, a long time ago. But there was Marilyn Webb, who was a lecturer at art school, well-known Māori printmaker. Star Gossage, who's a very well-known painter. Who else was in there? Quite a few people who have had, prestigious art careers. And that was my first kind of introduction. He organised a couple of group shows for us, which was amazing. And my first exhibition with him, I sold a piece to an art dealer, which was quite exciting at the time. But I still didn't really understand what it was all about. And then after having children, my creativity turned to making toys for them, dolls, furniture for the doll's house, I wove a piko for my daughter. She had a matching one for her doll. They both had potai woven hats. Did all that. That was kind of where I put my creative energy into. And then my last year, I guess, in Japan, I started making for myself again. I remember going and staying with our sis Amelia in Tokyo at one time, and she was making, she just started making some work, and she was doing it on a friend's balcony, Japan.
As you do.
As you do, because we all live in shoe boxes. Although she was staying with a friend who had quite a flash apartment, and she was making out on her veranda, which was really exciting for me to see her doing that. And then I started I got on Google, how to become an artist. The real basic sort of. And I remember listening to a podcast where they said, because it's interesting. These days I talk to a lot of people, even Akemi, who I have an exhibition with her at the moment in Gisborne, an Ainu elder, activist, embroiderer, and she doesn't see herself as being an artist because she's trying to revive Ainu artistic practices, and so she just sees that as being a part of being Ainu, I guess. And I guess maybe it's a confidence thing. She doesn't quite see herself as being an artist yet, but also she sees it as being integral to the traditional way of Ainu life, where everybody would have made their clothes. So they're, every day, although she's making pretty fancy things that they wouldn't every day. But yeah, rather than calling herself an artist, I guess she just sees herself as being Ainu, and that comes with, and making Ainu garments comes with being Ainu. And I know a lot of people who other people call artists before they start calling themselves that. Whereas for me, it sounds a bit arrogant maybe, but in my mind, I've always called myself an artist. And I remember listening to this podcast saying, well, if you're not making art, then you're not an artist. And I thought, I'm not an artist. I'm not a real artist. Like, I'm a fake because I'm not stuff. And then I started kind of reading more and looking into other artists, seeing how they did it, because I didn't have I was living in a shoebox. I didn't have there was no hope of getting a studio or anything. I was working full time. And I read something that said that, if you're an artist and you make wherever you are. That can be your kitchen table or anything, just so long as you're making. And I thought, well, actually, that's what I've always done. When I was making things for the kids, I just made while they were sleeping or while they were playing. I'd take my weaving with me, and they'd be playing and I'd be weaving. So I thought, right, well, I better get to it. If I'm an artist and I need to make art, I better start. Better get cracking. So I started making painting at my, the kotatsu, the Japanese low table. And I took my work up to Indigenous Peoples Conference in Sapporo, where I was helping out there. Jumped in on one of the workshops and exhibited some of my work. And then back in Tokyo, Akemi was having an exhibition with some Ainu friends, and she invited me to join them. So I thought, oh, yeah, cool. That was pretty exciting. So I did that. That was 2019. And then they'd actually told me, because I've always wanted to carve, always. but there were no, and I'd looked around for opportunities in Aotearoa before I left, but there were none. And if there were any, it clearly specified tāne only. So that's one of the things that's changed while I've been away. And I heard about Te Wananga or Aotearoa through my Ainu friends who had visited. And I thought, oh, what's all this about? And I noticed that they had a whakairo, Māori carving program. So I'd rung them from Japan to ask if they accepted wahine onto their course. And they said, yes, they did, but that I needed to be in the country. So I thought, okay, put that on hold for a while. And then when I did decide to come home, one of the first things I did after coming home in 2020, I signed up for a carving course at Te Wananga Aotearoa. But prior to that, as you mentioned, I did start carving. I did begin my carving journey in Japan. One of the high schools that I was working at, I became buddies with the art teacher there. He was teaching carving. It was an all-girls school. And I kind of rocked up one day and said, hey, this looks cool. Can I jump in on your class? He said, yep, for sure. So that's where it began. And then when I moved to Sendai and my reo hapani improved, I looked for some courses. I found one for Buddhist statues, carving Buddhist statues. I rocked up there, said to the teacher, I'm a foreigner, I'm a woman, I'm not Buddhist. Is it cool if I join your class? And he said, yeah, totally. Jump on chisels sort of thing. And so that's where it all began.
Wow. Did you find that there were differences in terms of the Japanese style of carving that you learned, and then going back home and then, doing carving back then Aotearoa?
Totally different. So I was carving on a small scale. And so they use chisels that are they're like wood cutting tools, but they have long handles, and they don't use a mallet. For larger scale work, they do use a mallet, but for the carving that I was doing, it was all just using your own body weight to push through. So you're just basically pushing as you carve. Whereas when I came back, everything was on a much larger scale, and the chisels that are used here in whakairo Māori carving with mallet. A mallet here. It's just lying there randomly. So you're tapping the chisels, and they use mainly German or Swiss chisels. Yeah, whereas the ones that I was using in Japan, it's all Japanese steel. So very different. I had to get used to using a mallet, and it was quite easy for me to just slip back into wanting to, you go back to what you know. So it's taken me a while. But at the moment I'm making Karetao puppets, Māori puppets, which are small scale, and it's much finer. So to block it out, or to move a lot of the wood initially, I would use my mallet and chisel. But for the smaller, finer, delicate details, I mean, if I did that, I'd just go
headless. Headless.
That's right, headless, limbless. So I use my Japanese chisels for that. Yeah. So it's a combination of everything that I've learned. which is pretty cool.
Since being back and I'm learning, relearning the way of carving there in Aotearoa, well, the Māori way of carving. I was wondering about whether you have seen other artists, other wahine, or is that still like there are not many of you doing that type of artistry?
Yeah, there are still not many of us. But there are a few, and I've met some amazing wahine Māori carvers. That's been one of the exciting things about coming home. We had a show that was showing at Corbin Estate until last month. A few of us carvers there. Zena Elliott is really at the forefront. Chris Harvey, Tessa Harris. There's a few of us, and that show is moving to Whakapane, so that's going to be showing there from April. And I'm still, there's quite a few women out there who want to carve or have had a bit of a go on the chisels, but then haven't been able to follow that through because there's been nowhere to learn. So I'm just kind of learning about who they are so that we can all, come together and support one another, because it's really important to do that when you're, when there's not many of us, and share our skills and uplift one another.
Can you talk about the creative process, like when you're preparing for an exhibition? How do you prepare yourself? Because I feel like obviously the creative, that comes naturally to you, the skill, but I mean, mentally, spiritually, like is it like a whole kind of like layer of things that you need to kind of like really prepare in order to go into an exhibition? Or am I just trying to make it sound like real difficult, but it's really not?
Oh, sis, yeah, it's hard. It's a hard space to navigate. But I'm reasonably sharp on admin. It's my first time applying for funding. I've always kind of been on the periphery of it, where I've been writing letters of support for other people. With Shared Lines, when we so Shared Lines is an artist exchange that we started in. We started talking about it in 2011 after our dual earthquakes in Christchurch and Sendai. A friend of mine from art school, or tuakana of mine, printmaker Kim Lowe, after the earthquake in Christchurch, I'd made contact with her and said, "Hey, how are you doing? You okay?" And she said, "Yep. It's all good." And then we had the earthquake, tsunami, nuclear incident a couple of weeks after that, and she contacted me saying, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And so when things kind of settled a little bit, we had a korero about what we could do to support both communities. And so that's when we started Shared Lines with Aya Takada, who runs a gallery, Bruto Flugus, in Shiogama, Linda Lee, who is a producer who just moved to Christchurch, and then Mirabelle Oliver, who I knew in Sendai. She was working there as an ART. So we kind of kicked off this exchange, and they bought the work from around about 50 artists to Sendai, which we had this artist exchange between the artists that brought the work over. We had an exhibition at Sendai Mediatek, and then the following year we took work from artists in Sendai to Christchurch. So that was kind of, I got my first taster of the basics, like shipping artwork, transporting artwork. And that was a situation where people had their studios had filled with liquefaction. They were red stickered, so they couldn't actually use their studios anymore. So they kind of grabbed their work and brought it as it was. So there was a lot of stuff that was unframed. So that was bare kind of basics of doing an in-store, hanging an exhibition, dealing with all those logistics. We were also dealing with 2 languages, so was getting artist bios and then translating that into Japanese. And so that kind of gave me a bit of insight. And at that stage, I was applying for more like sponsorship and like nominal support than it was funding. Now back home, I've been applying for funding, and then just, the logistics of finding gallery spaces, preferably through an open call, public or community galleries where I don't have to pay to use the space. For the exhibitions of Ainu art, I needed to pay for some venues because the time frame, public galleries generally show the work from local artists. It's also a process where you're competing against others, so you don't know until the results come out. And meanwhile, we had to plan, so it was necessary to have confirmed venues. So I've learned a lot in a very short space of time. But with Nga Hau, we've done kapahaka together, organising those gigs, if we did overseas gigs or, in another city, it's organising travel, the time frame, all that kind of stuff. So events, I've done that before.
You're a pro. You're a pro. You're a pro. Just say. Can you then speak on the Ainu collaboration that you had, ongoing with Akemi Shimada, showcasing contemporary art from the Ainu people of Japan? Like, can I just go back to when you started, like for you personally, when did you start, when did you start fostering or building connections with our Ainu whānau here in Japan? Like, how did that come to be?
So we had Wananga, how we've had Wananga at the New Zealand Embassy. They've graciously offered us a space in the past to get together, practice, because we live all around the country, and for whakawhanaungatanga. And Akemi came visit us at one of our wānanga. And I'm not sure if Matarahi, one of our members, he might have already had contact with them. So behind any relationship, there's a korero, right? There's a whakapapa. And when they held I think it was the Indigenous Youth Summit in Hokkaido, the chair of Nga Hau, Max Aranui, at the time he attended that summit, and I think that's either where he met Akemi. He certainly met some Ainu there. And ahead of their trip to Aotearoa, they had asked if we prepare them. So Matarahi had been sent to Hokkaido to Wananga with them and prepare them for their trip to Aotearoa, what they, might need to expect in regards to sleeping marae style, pōhiri, general tikanga on the marae, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where it kicked off. And then when they returned to Japan after their trip, they had a report session. Matarahi went down to Shin Yokohama for that. I was in Sendai. I was interested, and Max knew that I was. He also knew that I had the reo, so I could, more Japanese, so that I could communicate with them directly. And he said, okay, Ngaroma, I think you should go. So it was at the orders of our chief, Max.
And the rest is history, they say.
And the rest is history. That's right.
Wow. I mean, it must have been special, you being there in Aotearoa and they, coming over in January. That must have brought back a lot of emotions and memories for you, just to have them there and be able to exhibit work together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're all friends of mine who came over. There was only one person I hadn't met before, Mombetsu-san, Ainu Hunter, and he was great. Value. He kept trying to hunt everything. But occupational hazard. We're like, don't look at the cows like that. We were straight up in Whangarei, and there's a turkey came jumping over the fence. He's like, what's that? It's a turkey. Can we eat it? No, you can't. Keep your eyes off it. But the rest of them, there's Akemi, whanaunga of hers, Sayo, Koji, a printmaker, and then there was and then Monchan's, the 4 Ainu artists. Yasu, photographer, he has documented their trips over here. He's a dear friend of mine. And Taka, the interpreter, who's also a very good friend of mine. So we've moved around together when we've been supporting Ainu, or Taka supports a lot of delegations that come from Aotearoa. He's amazing. So it was really great reconnecting with them. I saw Taka, once the borders opened up, and he's been over since. But it was my first time seeing Akemi and Yasu in gosh, how long? 4 years. So we had. She's got a very wry sense of humour, Akemi. Bossy, strict, straight up, very loving. So, and she hasn't been well since I saw her last. So that was, that was quite hard seeing her. She's become a lot more frail in body, but certainly not in mind. So it was great to be reconnected with them. And I think within the first, we were all really happy to be reunited. It was just us 3 initially, Yasu, Akemi and I. And in the end, it was us. We spent the last 4 days or so together in Gisborne as well. And within the first 24 hours, we'd all had a bit of a tangi for whatever reason. Just, being happy to see one another, and because the build-up was quite long and intense, quite overwhelming, but wonderful to be reunited with them again.
You mentioned before the Karetao, so can you speak a little bit more to that, the portrait of an artist as a Karetao? Like, what is the exhibition? Like, what is the
Kaupapa?
behind that exhibition?
So there is still a bit of resistance by some to wahine Māori carving. It's a bit of a grey area. Like, different people say different things, and it is what it is. And so it's not always clear. You know, some people say, oh, well, they shouldn't be carving this and shouldn't be carving that, you know, at one stage it was we pretty much lost the art of carving. Missionaries didn't encourage it, as they didn't encourage they discouraged a lot of our cultural practices, and they saw it as being, you know, a lot of our whakairo Māori were oh gosh, sorry, I'm struggling to find the word for it, but they would cut off the ure, things that, you know, as Polynesian people, it's very much, fertility is important to us. You know, it wasn't always easy to make babies and keep them, and whakapapa is of course paramount. So work that kind of whakairo that tells stories of our whakapapa, and so whakairo Māori was not was discouraged, and it was you know, on one hand it was bought and traded, on the other it was, so people started making it for the souvenir trade, but then for ourselves, and with I mean, there's so much behind it, the land wars, losing our land, loss of culture, all of that, you don't have time for to continue cultural practices. So Apirana Ngata, with the help of Pine and Hone Taipa, he started up the Māori Arts and Crafts Institute. I can't remember if that's what it was called at the time, but this was, there were some areas that didn't lose carving. We certainly lost it up north. So you'll find that there are not as many whare with carvings up north. And because of this loss, the stories around carving have changed. So I'm pretty sure that women would have always carved something. We would have always done something, right? Sure, you would have had experts in certain fields, but we all would have known how to fish and use waka and garden, and everyone would have had a certain amount of knowledge, although there would have been people that had more knowledge than others. As far as master carvers go, there is some korero around women carving historically, but in recent years, and with the loss of carving, it's been tani, it's been men that have carved more, and that is and men who have been involved with the revitalisation of carving, I guess. So where we've landed now is very much a product of colonisation. So it's I've heard some people have said to me, oh, well, isn't it just sexist that women can't carve? It's more complex than that. And, the stories that we've lost are often replaced with made-up stories. And, yeah. So what I have been told, and I have had a lot of support from some male carvers who are very supportive of us carving, and I'm very grateful for, all that support. There are some people who aren't so supportive still, and there are some people who say, yep, it's all good, you can carve this, but you can't carve that. And again, those are kind of, there's grey areas around that. So what I do know is that with that Karetao, there were different types of Karetao, but the Karetao that I'm making, the puppets, are from the Whare Tāpere, which is the House of Entertainment. And the House of Entertainment was noa as opposed to tapu, so it was free of restrictions and it was open to everyone, to my knowledge. So you could say that it's strategic, it's deliberate for me to make Karetao because they are noa. And I've always been interested in them, and they're playful, right? So just grab this.
I know you've got one there, right? I knew it. I was like, she is so prepared. I know she's got something to show.
Little mechanism. So this is my take. They didn't have mechanisms like this. Holding what's supposed to be a karaka leaf.
Are you more determined? Are you constantly trying to prove yourself, and you do that by pushing the limits where you can, and then maybe push back a little bit, and then keep pushing? I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, I don't do it to make anyone hoha.
Yeah, it's not disrespectful. You're not doing it in a disrespectful manner. Like, you are very aware of the complexity and layers to the. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally. And I don't want to trample on the mana of our tāne who carve, because they're fellow carvers. I mean, I'm still very much a beginner, so I look at what they're doing and go, oh wow, they're setting an example, and I admire what they do, and I have, like I say, I've received some support from some tāne who are carving, and I'm in complete admiration for what they do, and I'm not doing it to push them out of their space or anything. So if I'm not welcome in a space, then that's all good. I don't need to go there, and I'm acutely aware that there are some spaces that I'm not welcome in, so that's all good. I've got my own space, and there are other wahine Māori who are trailblazing, like Zena Elliott, and I can learn, from her. I relish those moments where we are in a Wananga setting and we can learn together, because those are always, when I say Wananga, I mean not through an institution, but someone decides to hold a hui and you get invited and there's a set kaupapa and you learn intensively for a few days. That's just, I mean, to me, it's the ultimate kind of experience. That's when you get the korero, everything that comes with it. It's and we've started holding our own as well. I suppose I also want to be able to nurture other wahine Māori, or any carvers, tāne Māori, anyone that asks me for help in anything. I'm most willing to kind of share my tips and things. because I've had such a difficult journey in getting here. Does it make me want to push the boundaries? Yeah. I mean, if someone tells me, like I say, I don't want to trample on anyone else's mana, but if someone says, well, no, you can't do it just because you're a woman, then that's hoha. There's, like I'm a reasonable person, I'm like, and why? Why would that be? If you give me a good answer as to why that might be, I will take that on board. But if you're just saying, oh, you can't do this, just because kind of thing. And there's a lot of complex debates around protecting the whare tangata, as women, because we have the whakapapa line, but without tāne, that's not going to happen either. So, I'm always up for a korero. I'm open to korero, and as we all are, and we often sit around talking about tikanga around carving, like whether we carve when we have an ikura, when we're menstruating, all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to be around wahine Māori when you're talking about that. I don't believe that tāne Māori have any place on weighing in on that sort of korero. If you've never menstruated before, I don't really think that, why are you talking about it, sort of thing. I can understand some of the korero behind it, but I think that that's a space that women need to be sharing whakaaro around.
This is very, very educational, and I'm learning a lot. Thank you. I was wondering, like, for you as an artist, as a carver, normal day, what is a normal day for you? What I mean is, what time do you start your day? What time do you finish? Do you have some kind of routine, or is it dependent on whether you're working towards an exhibition or you're currently exhibiting work? Like, is there such a thing as a normal day for an artist?
Well, I have heard of artists who are extremely disciplined and who have their admin days and their making days.
That's not you.
I'm aiming for that. But yeah, like you say, what is my normal day? Because often people just, they say, what do you do? And it's taken me kind of a while to say, I'm an artist. Sometimes they say, oh, I'm a maker, or because you say I'm an artist and people, it just shuts down conversation, unless they're an artist or a creative, because they don't know, where to go with that. If
what's the next question?
Or whatever, then that's right. You just don't really have a kind of a bar. And so it does really revolve around what projects I'm doing. At the moment, I'm wrapping up reporting for the exhibitions that I received funding for the group exhibition that we had at Corbin Estate, and then the Ainu exhibitions. And I'm also working towards, so you've got to constantly line things up. If you don't, then you finish a project, and it's really hard because a lot of artists don't have that admin brain, and I do struggle because once I get in the creative zone, I don't. I'll just keep going, and I'll forget to eat and go to kapahaka and do all the kind of basic human things that you need to do. But it's because I'm having fun. So I just hyper focus, and I'll get in there. Lately, I've started setting a timer so that I'll stop and have a stretch every now and then. Otherwise, after several hours of carving, I'll kind of stand up and go, oh, and I'll peel. I'm so burnt. Yeah, it's not really good. It's because I've been having a fun time, but it's not great on the body. Yeah, so typical day is, I do have, of course, things that I have to do throughout the week, and I've just started an artist residency with Nga out at Te Tuhi in Pakuranga. Today we have a studio visit from Neke Moa, who is a carver, jeweler, artist.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. She's coming in this afternoon. So I'm sharing a studio space with Chevron Hassett, a young Māori artist who's also carving. So he's going to be there later on today as well.
You're so busy. So busy,
well,
so busy.
So
I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
so are you.
Like, it's so, I mean, it's really cool
Yola.
that, like, you love what you're doing and just keeping busy, right? So, you know, being home and just being able to create and exhibit work. Is it good?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week I've got 2 deadlines for applications. Yeah.
See, you're getting the hang of it, the admin stuff.
I am, but it's, you know, it's not what I want to do. So
you need to hire an assistant.
Production assistant. I do. But it's pretty hard when you're pohara. When I get, but yes. I just gotta prioritize.
You got to prioritize. And I mean, my next question is self-care, but then you've kind of already alluded to some bad habits, but you're trying to improve outside of making and creating and doing what, you know, like what you're passionate about, your craft. What else do you like doing aside from making and creating and carving? Like, are you I'm going for a run type of person? I'm going to get some sleep type of person? Oi.
Oh, I'm not a great sleeper. I've never been a great sleeper. No, I don't run. I do a bit of yoga. I like walks, definitely. I like to go for a walk in the ngahere. I like to sing, as you know, even if I'm, you know, I'm pretty mediocre.
Stop.
I'm just going to karaoke.
No.
I'm just hearing you sing Whitney Houston numbers.
Stop.
We're going to do a podcast with that.
Man, you know, in Japan, everyone sounds good when they get a karaoke. It's all those, like, you know, functions on the karaoke system.
Well, wow, yeah. And there's good singers like you. It always helps if you can sing. But I mean, one of the interesting things is, you know, I often hear when we have people from home come across and they're amazing singers, but they do karaoke and they actually don't sound that great. And that's because they don't know how to use the mic, and they don't necessarily sing the songs that they're good at singing, right? Because it's all about choosing those songs that you sound good singing. It's strategic.
Such the expert. All those years of living in Japan, you're an expert. Where are your book recommendations? I know you've got some books there. Like, you've got some books that just happen to be there beside you. Share some of your. I know you had so many questions about books and things that you should share. I was just like, share whatever you want.
Kapai. Okay. I mean, my books. I guess I try not to hold on to too many things other than tools. And when I was in Japan, like when I left Japan, I really brought home my tools and my clothes and books. Books are the one thing that, I have a bit of a weakness with in terms of my purchases. I decided kind of years ago not to hang on to novels unless I thought they were really, really important for other people to read, ones that I could share. So a lot of my books are reference books, and they're books that I use again and again to refer to. So sometimes I read them in one go. Most often I read them in bits. Here's one that I bought recently, Patu by Gavin Bishop. It's about the New Zealand Wars, and you could say that it's a children's book, but it's got some amazing illustrations. And for me, of course, I love picture books. I love the visuals.
Me too.
Yeah. And things like, the New Zealand Wars, which it's heavy going information. It's history. So unless you're good at remembering dates and everything, I think having visual cues really helps. And this came out at the end of last year. Really awesome. So I recommend that to children and adults. This one is another Bible of mine that I refer to constantly. Protest Tohe. Stephanie Gibson, Matariki Williams, and Pua Waikens. It's about objects of resistance, persistence, and defiance. So these are, what would you call them? I guess my first intro into art that really resonated with me was Robin Kahukiwa. I don't know if you're familiar with her work at all. Or maybe even before that, the work that she does with heavy kaupapa Māori, and these are things that I'm really going off the track, but these are things like graphics and things that people have used during protests. Mum and Dad used to take us, like we went up to Takaparafo, Bastion Point, during the occupation of the whenua up there, and again during the Springbok tours. And there was music, and they used, I had a balloon that had Biko written on it. That was the surname of Steve Biko.
Right.
Yeah, the activist, right? So this is during apartheid era, and this is, using creativity as a way to protest, the art of resistance, I guess. And I had this balloon. I remember coming home with this balloon when we'd marched up and down, and we would have, I guess it was in the pushchair or something, would have marched up and down Queen Street, but it was something that really stuck with me for a long time. So anyway, that book is full of those sort of things. And then I'm just gonna, these are things, Native Edible Plants by Andrew Crow. Anything by Andrew Crow is great, about the forest, the ngahere, in Aotearoa. There's, I guess, having lived away from home, I'm super excited to, I see things with a different lens. And this one, Fungi of Aotearoa. There's a bit of a random book selection there, but
it's okay. This is your time. No judgments. Wow. Before we, as we begin to wrap up, I really just wanted to ask about the political climate currently in Aotearoa, and then of course, with protests and things going on. I recently saw a TikTok about is it Freiburg High School, a high school where the students, their activism, and so brave, by the way, I must say, so seeing this on social media, living away from home, what is it like there in Tamaki Makaurau? Like, do you, like the political climate, are you feeling that shift? Are you seeing that shift? Are you hearing it? What is it like being at home, like right now?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. When I came home, I was super excited at all the changes that had taken place. I used to, people used to get quite angry about my name. They just get hoha about having to pronounce my name. So, whether I be in the doctor's surgery or whatever. And like I remember a colleague of mine in Japan who, I'm really going off track now, but who was Singaporean, and she's not always visible, right, as being a foreigner. So she used to say, she used to talk about my white privilege as a foreigner in Japan. And, once I started going grey, I dyed my hair blonde, and I thought, right, I'm going to milk this. And, they don't know, they got no idea. And they didn't even know that Ngaroma was a Māori name or anything. And I thought, well, yeah, no, you're not wrong, because that's what people see, right? They look at me and think that, and a lot of people, because I'm fair-skinned, think that I'm Pākehā, which has meant that I've, some people, when I was brunette, it depends on what you're looking for. Some people will know straight away. Others won't. I guess being fair-skinned, it means that you put up with oblique racism all your life. I don't get followed through shops like some of my darker-skinned cousins do. I don't have, I haven't had those direct experiences that they have, but mine have been different. Racism is, well and truly alive in Aotearoa, and it always has been. For people who've never experienced, well, they're living under a rock, or I don't know where they're living. But...
That's what I tell people when they're like, we love New Zealand. And I'm like,
Yeah,
right.
No. Yeah. And so coming home, there are quite a few changes. All of a sudden it's a lot more fashionable to be Māori, or to be Indigenous, which is great. And I've even had, because people used to say, Ngaroma, not Ngaramu, isn't there something else I can call you by? Do you have a nickname or something? I'd say, yes, it's Ngaroma.
Wow.
Whereas now it's quite different. People will say, they actually make an effort, or they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm probably bastardizing your name. How do I say your name properly? It's very, very different. And which I appreciate. It's great. So I was really excited about that, to come home and see all the changes, and the Labour government had really made a push to encourage people to speak, learn, use the reo. And there are a lot of, going to Te Wananga, Aotearoa, and there's Chinese, Indians walking through, tēnā koe. And, and they can korero Māori, and it's amazing. It's awesome. It's the way it should be. And as you know, learning another language, you will have grown up with Samoan, and then learning Japanese can have its challenges if you're working in an English-speaking environment all the time. But when you're out of that, you're totally immersed. If if you choose to be, you can be in a immersion environment in Japan, and that's hard here to be in that kind of environment still. So it's not easy to learn the reo, and I struggle with that, as many Māori, because who don't speak our own language, and the percentage of fluent Māori language is still low. Māori language speakers are still really low, and comparatively, it's easy to learn Japanese, and I feel embarrassed about the fact that I speak Japanese much better, but it is what it is, and I think that we need to embrace being able to learn Māori as our as one of our national languages. So it's hurtful. It's really sad and troubling to see people like to hear people like David Seymour and his anti-Māori, his Māori bashing rhetoric. It has no place whatsoever in finding a unified front. There's nothing but benefits to being bilingual. Yeah, and the more languages people in Europe that speak several languages, once you've got a couple of languages behind you, it does become easier to. But it's our language. It's Ngāti Whenua nei. It's from here. I don't know why I really I don't know why he is the way he is. I don't know what makes him come up with that stuff. For Winston Peters, it's votes. He just frustrates me. So Freiburg College, really brave.
So brave, those kids.
Yeah, and it is hypocritical that David Seymour espouses all this rhetoric about how it just makes me hoha thinking about it, and good on them for not putting on a pōwhiri for him. Yep.
Yeah, I really hope that school stand by their students, because I think it took a lot of courage for them to, that is their form of activism and advocacy, so.
Yeah, it shows that they're thinkers, they're young adults, and they're concerned about the future for Māori. So, power to them. I think it's great. And it's a shame that the school isn't backing them at this stage. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, we're at the part of the show where, this is my opportunity to thank you. I am mindful of the time because you are on a very tight schedule. I'm very aware of that. But Ngaroma, I thank you so much for coming on the show, and just for the korero, for the knowledge. I've learned so much today, and I'm really excited to just see you continue to thrive in terms of your craft and the passion that you put into your art. It's so cool to see. To me, you've always been like a wahine toa. Like, for the time I've known you here, the advocacy work that you do, that you were doing here, not just when you say the admin stuff for Nga Hau, but community building is how I always saw you, as someone who really brought us together as Nga Hau, but also the community building that you're doing up in Sendai, the work that you're doing to foster and maintain those relationships with our Ainu whānau. And to see you back home and just thriving and loving, settled back, thriving and loving what you're doing. I love to see it, and I'm so happy that you said yes to coming on the show. I know I had to twist your hand, your leg, your ear, everything. Twistable, had to twist your arm a little bit to get you on here, but it was just so important for me for people to hear your story. So important. So I just want to offer you just some encouragement, just to keep going strong. You are amazing. You are inspirational, phenomenal. And it was just such a blessing to have met you here in Japan. And I'm glad that we can continue to keep in touch. I want to throw it back your way and just ask you just to share some final words of wisdom or encouragement and just to, wrap up our show. Lots of love.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ihoa. Thank you for inviting me to be on here. I'm in awe of what you do and your mahi. I know that you've had a very early morning start in doing this, and you even had an interview before this. And I also know how passionate you are about supporting your students and encouraging them to read and do whatever you can for them. I know that you're a passionate educator. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe for all the mahi that you do as well. And yes, I was anxious about coming on and just being an egg, really, because, being an egg online, because it's online once it's there. You create a safe space for all the people that you have on your podcast, and I'm privileged to be on here alongside all the other amazing people that you have had on your show. And I met Linda the other day, by the way.
Yay! Shout out to Linda.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that was cool because I listened to, did a bit of intel, listened to her podcast as well. So that was cool. And I love your podcasts. I'm going through them, and I'm excited to hear the upcoming shows as well. So, ngā mihi e hoa.